I don't think I ever really thought of it in terms of that. Like, I didn't go. First of all, I don't know what the life is that I wanted. I don't know what you want to be comfortable and you want to have friends. I like goobers because they're the chocolate-covered peanuts. You like the Raisinets.
I like Raisinets,
It's the same thing. Like, I'm a Dodger fan, you're a Yankee fan.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm only kidding.
Excuse me. Pardon.
Most couples break up and move on. Danny DeVito and this mystery woman wrote their own rules. For years, their relationship puzzled fans and even Hollywood itself. They separated, stayed apart, and never officially reunited. Yet somehow, they remained inseparable in the moments that mattered most.
Danny DeVito, after 50 years in movies, TV shows, he's making his debut in Arthur Miller's The Price.
He plays Gregory Solomon, an elderly furniture dealer appraising assets from the family home of two estranged brothers, and he will stoop to any level to get the best price.
What kept bringing them back into each other's lives? And why is Danny DeVito now speaking more openly than ever about the woman he never truly left behind? Join us as we uncover the surprising truth behind Danny DeVito's most important relationship, the audition that was not an audition. In 1970, a 25-year-old Danny DeVito walked into an acting class in New York City because a friend had told him that a young woman named Rhea Perlman was going to be there and that he should come and meet her. Neither of them was famous at that period. They were just two people with theatrical ambitions, New York City apartments, and the combination of talent and persistence that the entertainment industry eventually rewards when the timing cooperates. He walked in, saw her, and immediately told a mutual friend he was going to marry her. He had known her for approximately 3 minutes. The mutual friend reportedly found this statement amusing, but Danny found it accurate. They started dating and moved in together. For 11 years before they were married, they were a couple building their careers alongside each other, supporting each other through the grinding early years of trying to make it in acting, sharing an apartment in New York, while both of them figured out how to turn talent into a sustainable professional life. Danny had trained at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and understood from early in his life that the conventional romantic lead trajectory was not going to be available to him. He was 4 feet 10 inches tall and built his entire approach to acting around the idea that his specific qualities were assets rather than obstacles. Rhea had attended Hunter College and developed the comedic instincts that would eventually produce one of the most beloved characters in sitcom history. When they met in 1970, she was 22 years old and already possessed of the quality that would define her public persona for 5 decades. Warm, sharp, and entirely unimpressed by pretension. For 11 years, they were together without being married because they did not need the legal structure. They had each other, and the relationship was working without a ceremony attached to it. And then, in 1982, a television show made everything official. But before the wedding and before the fame, there were years of quiet work and mutual support that most people who know the DeVito-Perlman story have never heard about. So what was happening during those 11 years before the ring? And how did a taxi dispatcher end up changing both of their lives at the same time? The careers that justified everything. Taxi premiered on ABC in September 1978. The show assembled one of the great comedic ensembles of the late 1970s in a New York City taxi garage, and in its second season, it added a character who would define Danny's public image for years. Louis De Palma, the dispatcher who sat above the garage floor in a wire cage and delivered cruelty and comedy in roughly equal measure, was one of the great television characters of his era. Danny played Louis for 5 seasons and won an Emmy Award for the role in 1981. He was nominated 4 times. He deserved it every time. Louis was petty, self-interested, contemptuous of everyone beneath him, and willing to exploit almost any situation for personal advantage. Danny played him with a combination of menace and absurdity that made the character simultaneously despicable and irresistible. It was the kind of performance that cannot be planned or engineered. It had to be found. In 1982, Rhea had a recurring guest role on Taxi, giving them for the first time the experience of working together professionally. The wedding happened that same year, January 1982, after 11 years of being together without the legal formality. They did not have a large wedding. They were not making a public statement. They were two people who had been together for 11 years and decided the moment had arrived. Their daughter Lucy was born in 1983. Grace arrived in 1985. Jake in 1986. 3 children in 4 years, building the family that would become the central organizing structure of the rest of their lives, regardless of what happened to the romantic relationship that produced it. The year Rhea appeared on Taxi, she also auditioned for a new show being developed by the same creative team. The show was Cheers. The character was Carla Tortelli, the acerbic waitress whose working-class wit became one of the defining comedic presences of 1980s television. She played Carla for 11 seasons and won 4 Emmy Awards for the role. She is one of only 4 performers in Cheers history to appear in all 275 episodes. The Danny-Rhea household during the 1980s and early 90s was one of the most professionally successful in Hollywood. He was making Romancing the Stone, Ruthless People, Batman Returns, and Twins. She was making Cheers history and winning Emmy Awards, both of them doing extraordinary work simultaneously, raising 3 children, sharing a home in Los Angeles, appearing to be exactly the couple the world assumed they were. And then the 90s arrived, and the question of whether they were actually making it work became considerably more complicated. So what happened when they made a film together that was about a family falling apart? And what did that experience reveal about what was happening inside their own home? The first separation nobody saw coming. In 1996, Danny DeVito directed, produced, and appeared in Matilda, the adaptation of Roald Dahl's beloved children's novel. Perlman co-starred alongside him, playing a husband and wife who were also, in the story, deeply negligent parents to an extraordinary child. Danny directed his own wife, playing his screen wife in a film about how a family can fail the person at its center while going about the business of their ordinary lives. The experience of making Matilda was one both of them have described with warmth in subsequent interviews. They were performing a grotesque parody of a marriage while being in an actual one. The film carried the specific texture of a project made by people who understood from the inside what family is, both its capacity for warmth and its capacity for failure. It grossed nearly $34 million against a budget of $28 million and became one of the most beloved children's films of the decade, still watched and quoted 30 years later. But behind the warmth of the production and the professional achievements of both of their careers, something in the private structure of the marriage was changing in ways that were not visible to anyone outside it. The specific pressures of 2 major careers running in parallel, with the additional demands of 3 children, were producing complications that eventually became impossible to manage from inside the same household. In October 2012, Danny's representative confirmed to media that the couple had separated. Danny's response to the separation was characteristically direct and characteristically uncertain simultaneously. He told Extra in December 2012 that he considered himself still together with Perlman, that they were separate but together, that he did not consider himself single, and that they were working on getting back together. He was 67 years old, 30 years into a marriage, describing himself as separate, but together in a way that made grammatical nonsense and emotional complete sense. They reconciled in March 2013. It lasted 4 years, And then the second separation arrived in 2017, and this time nothing was announced about reconciliation plans. So what changed the second time around? And why did two people who clearly still loved each other decide that living apart was the only workable arrangement they had left? The decision never to divorce. In March 2017, Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman separated for the second time. But this time, there was no public statement about reconciliation. The separation became the permanent state of the relationship, which turned out to be not as simple a thing as the word permanent usually implies, because they did not divorce. They have not filed for divorce. As of 2025, they remain legally married. Two people who have been separated for 8 years, who live in different homes, who are no longer in a romantic relationship by any functional definition, and who are still legally each other's spouses. When asked about this by Julia Louis-Dreyfus on her Wiser Than Me podcast in 2023, Rhea said they were still married, still very good friends, and still seeing each other a lot. She said their family was still the most important thing to both of them. And then she said something considerably more honest than most public statements about the end of relationships. That she was not going to sugarcoat it. That it had been very difficult at first. That there had been a lot of reasons for the separation she was not going to go into. And that it had taken time for them to arrive at the understanding they had with each other now. Rhea also revealed that she liked not always having her husband there. That she loved seeing him when they wanted to see each other, that he did not have to take her to every function, and she did not have to take him, that they could do separate things and still have a genuinely good time together. She described these things not as consolation prizes for the loss of the marriage, but as genuine pleasures she valued. She also said alongside that, the marriage was still there, not the romantic version, but the version that had always been at its core. Two people who loved each other, agreed on almost everything important, and had 3 children and now grandchildren who were the center of both their lives. The question that most people who know this story eventually land on is whether the arrangement they have now is a failure or the most honest version of love either of them has ever found. And the answer to that question is visible most clearly in what their daily lives actually look like right now. The architecture of what remains. In May 2024, Danny DeVito sat down with Fox News Digital and talked about where he and Rhea Perlman stood. He was 80 years old. He had been separated from his wife for 7 years. And what he described sounded nothing like the aftermath of a marriage that had ended. "We are doing great," he said. "We are sharing our granddaughter, our new granddaughter, and we see each other all the time." He described daily conversation, lots and lots of talking, a lot of things together. He described the previous day, his eldest daughter Lucy's birthday party, which he and Rhea had attended together as a family, because that was how they operated. He said, "We are a tight family." Lucy DeVito, their eldest daughter, an actress who appeared in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and who made her Broadway debut in 2023 in a play alongside her father, got married, and DeVito described the wedding with the specific emotion of a parent witnessing one of the central milestones of their child's life. He said it was very emotional and really cool. He made a speech. He cried. He and Rhea Perlman were both there together because, of course, they were. At the 7th Fifth Emmy Awards in January 2024, they walked the red carpet together. Not because they had reconciled romantically, but because Lucy was nominated, and both of her parents were going to be there. They stood together and took photographs, and smiled in the specific way of two people who are completely comfortable in each other's presence, because they have been in each other's presence for 55 years. In April 2025, they appeared together on stage at the 33rd Champions for Children charity event. Speaking together, supporting the cause together, being Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman together. Because whatever else has changed about their relationship, that specific unit has not changed. They became grandparents to a daughter named Sinclair Lucille DeVito, and a second grandchild was on the way in 2024. DeVito described the grandparent experience with the specific delight of a man who had found a version of domestic joy that required none of the complications of the previous 50 years. Just a grandchild and a shared love of that grandchild and regular visits between two households that both happen to be run by people who still love each other. Relationship therapists who have commented on the DeVito-Perlman dynamic for media outlets have pointed to a consistent theme. What they have is not the absence of a relationship, but the transformation of one. The romantic partnership that defined the first 4 decades has become something else, a deep friendship, a co-parenting alliance, a shared investment in the family they built together, and that something else appears to be more durable than the thing it replaced. But what has he actually said about her now that he is 81 years old and has the full picture of everything they have been through? And why does what he says land differently now than it would have at any earlier point in the story? The revelation at 81. Danny DeVito is now 81 years old. The career that began with a young man showing up to an acting class because a friend mentioned a specific woman was going to be there has accumulated 5 decades of extraordinary work. Louis De Palma on Taxi, The Penguin in Batman Returns, Twins, Ruthless People, Matilda, L.A. Confidential, Aaron Brockovich, and Frank Reynolds on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the FX comedy where he has been playing a spectacularly depraved character since 2005, making it one of the longest-running live-action comedy series in American television history. A career that has never stopped and that has never repeated itself. His April 2025 appearance with Rhea at the Champions for Children event was the most recent visible public expression of what their relationship has become. They spoke on stage together. They looked entirely comfortable. They looked like two people who know each other so completely that public appearances together require no performance or management, just showing up and being who they are. He has said in multiple contexts across recent years that she is his family, that their connection is something he values completely, that the daily conversation and the shared grandchildren and the birthday parties and the red carpet appearances are not obligations he manages, but joys he participates in. He does not describe the separation as a loss. He describes the current arrangement as a different version of something that was always there. The National Enquirer, citing insiders in a 2025 piece, described the relationship as having only gotten stronger as time passed, with people close to the situation believing they were in every meaningful sense still soulmates. The word soulmates sits uncomfortably in celebrity journalism, but is difficult to argue with when the evidence is two people who have been separated for 8 years and still show up at each other's family milestones like they never left. Rhea herself said it most directly on the Wiser Than Me podcast, "Danny and I have always loved each other. We have 3 amazing children together, and we really agree on almost everything important. You know, we were together for 40 years. 40 years together, followed by 8 years of being together differently. The love did not change when the living arrangements changed. The daily phone calls did not change. The investment in each other's well-being did not change. What changed was the roof and the bed and the friction of two people occupying the same domestic space. And when that friction was removed, something cleaner and warmer and in some ways more honest emerged from underneath it. What it became instead was a family. 3 children who have good relationships with both parents and with each other, which is the most meaningful thing any couple navigating a separation can produce. Grandchildren being shared between two households run by people who still love each other. Red carpets walked together. Stages shared. Birthdays are celebrated side by side. And an 81-year-old man who found a woman at an acting class in 1970 and decided in the first 3 minutes that she was the one, who has spent 55 years proving that decision correct in every way, except the conventional one, who picks up the phone every single day and calls the woman he is still legally married to, who is not together with in the way that word usually means, and who is still the most important person in his life, regardless of what any document or living arrangement says about it. Is what they have now a failure? Or is it the most honest version of love that either of them has ever found? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.